Hello everyone. So welcome to session 27 of IS Baba's rapid revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I am Pritham Reddy and I will be dealing with 20 important topics in this session which is very crucial for prelims examination this year. So our first important topic is national policy on biofuels. So first you have to know what are biofuels. So biofuels are fuels which are produced from renewable resources and they are used in place of or in blend with diesel, petrol or other fossil fuels, especially for transportation or some stationary, portable and other applications. Next you have to know about the recent national policy on biofuels, that is 2018, which was approved by the government. So it envisages an indicative target. So two targets have been provided by this national policy on biofuel 2018. So first one, 20% blending of ethanol in petrol by 2030, and second target is 5% blending of biodiesel in diesel by 2030. So next you have to remember salient features of this national policy on biofuels 2018. So first important point what you have to remember is it has provided for classification of basic biofuels and advanced biofuels, and this basic biofuels it deals with first generation bioethanol and biodiesel, and advanced biofuels it deals with second generation and third generation biofuels. So under first generation biofuel we have bioethanol and biodiesel. Bioethanols they are produced from molasses. Biodiesel they are produced usually from non-edible oil seeds, whereas under 2G biofuel ethanol can be produced from municipal solid waste, whereas third generation biofuel it is produced from bio-CNG. So next important feature is this national policy on biofuel 2018. It expands the scope of raw material for ethanol production. So now it allows sugarcane juice, sugar containing materials such as sugar beet, sweet sorghum and starch containing materials like corn, cassava and other damaged food grains like wheat, broken rice, rotten potatoes, etc. So they are used for ethanol production. So the recent national policy on biofuel it has also allowed use of surplus food grains for production of ethanol, and this is done by approval of National Biofuel Coordination Committee. And also the national policy it provides for viability gap funding scheme, especially for 2G ethanol bio refineries. So a viability gap funding of almost 5,000 crore in 6 years in addition to other additional tax incentives is proposed under this national policy on biofuels. Next you have to remember the policy also encourages setting up of supply chain mechanisms for biodiesel production from non-edible oil seeds, used cooking oil and short gestation crops. So already we read about RUCO initiative. So they will be using the used cooking oil for biodiesel production. Next topic is Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana, that is Pradhan Mantri Jaiv Indhan Vatavaran Anukul Fasal Avashesh Nivaran Yojana. Very tough name. So this particular Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana it is in line with the national policy on biofuels. So we'll see the major objective of the scheme. So the major objective is to create an ecosystem for setting up commercial projects and especially to provide boost to research and development in 2G ethanol sector. And this Pradhan Mantri Jeevan scheme it will provide financial support to integrated bioethanol projects using lignocellulosic biomass and other renewable feedstock. Under this Yojana, around 12 commercial scale and 10 demonstration scale second generation ethanol projects will be provided a viability gap funding. So you have to remember focus of this PM Jeevan Yojana it is majorly on second generation ethanol projects, and also viability gap funding is provided to this 2G ethanol projects. And next you have to remember ethanol produced under this scheme will be mandatorily supplied to the OMCs, that is oil manufacturing companies, to further enhance the blending percentage under the EBP program. that is ethanol blended program. And Center for High Technology, that is a technical body which is under the aegis of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. It will be the implementation agency for the scheme. And the Center for High Technology, which is to be launched, will act as a tool to create 2G ethanol capacity in the country and also helps to attract investment in this particular new sector. Next important topic is ethanol blended program. So the government has set target of 10% bioethanol blending of petrol by 2022 and it wants to raise it to 20% by 2030 under this ethanol blended program. So you have to remember this target. So right now 10% bioethanol blending of petrol by 2022 and to raise it by 20% by 2030. So this ethanol blended program, it was launched in line with the National Biofuel Policy 2018. Under this ethanol blended program, so ethanol blending in petrol is being undertaken by the oil marketing companies in whole country except Island Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep, wherein oil marketing companies, they blend up to 10% ethanol in petrol under the EBP program. So you have to remember Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep are excluded. Next important topic is SATAT initiative. So SATAT, that is Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation. So Petroleum Ministry has launched this particular SATAT initiative to promote compressed biogas production plants, especially as an alternative and green transport fuel. So this SATAT initiative, it was launched in collaboration with PSU oil marketing companies and it paves way for setting up compressed biogas production plants by independent entrepreneurs. So the working group on biofuels, which was set up under the National Policy on Biofuels 2018, is in the process of finalizing a pan-India pricing model for compressed biogas. So you can expect a question on compressed biogas. So the initiative is aimed at providing a sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. So that is the initiative named SATAT. So next you have to know about what were the steps taken by the government to promote this particular initiative. So recently government is keen to set up around 5,000 compressed biogas production plants in the next 5 years. There will be no restriction on the technology choice and the government is incurring around 75,000 crore capital expenditure for setting up infrastructure for the city gas distribution network. And also the entrepreneurs, they will be able to separately market for other byproducts from these plants, including biomanure, carbon dioxide, etc., to enhance returns on investment. So the other initiatives which are linked to CBG, that is compressed biogas, involves National Policy on Biofuels 2018, which emphasizes on 3G, that is advanced biofuel, which includes CBG, that is compressed biogas. So we saw here. So while discussing about 3G, I said bio-CNG, that is compressed biogas. And another initiative which is linked to this compressed biogas includes the Gobardhan Yojana. So the government of India recently launched Gobardhan, that is galvanizing organic bio-agro resources scheme to convert cattle dung and solid waste in forms to CBG and compost. So we will see about Gobardhan. So Gobardhan stands for galvanizing organic bio-agro resources done. So Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, it had launched this particular Gobardhan. And right now this Gobardhan is under the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation under Ministry of Jal Shakti. So you have to remember Ministry of Jal Shakti. And remember this Gobardhan scheme, it is being implemented as part of Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. So this Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin comprises two main components for creating clean villages. One, creating open defecation free villages, and two, managing solid and liquid waste in villages. So this Gobardhan comes under the second component of Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. So this Gobardhan scheme deals with converting cattle dung and solid waste in farms to CBG and compost, that is compressed biogas and compost. So under this scheme, cattle dung, kitchen waste and agricultural waste, they can be tapped to create biogas based energy. So next we will see objective of this particular Gobardhan. So we know that rural areas have largest cattle population in the world, and rural India has the potential to leverage huge quantities of gobar into wealth and energy. So it will help to keep villages clean, and it also generates wealth and energy from cattle and other waste. And remember, this Gobardhan scheme, it is funded under the solid and liquid waste management component of the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. And in addition, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, it has also notified some central financial assistance. So next important topic is Swachh Nirmal Tat Abhiyan. So it is an intensive beach cleaning drive in 50 identified beaches of India. So what you have to remember is Swachh Nirmal Tat Abhiyan deals with mass cleanliness cum awareness drive, especially in 50 identified beaches of the India. And it covers 10 coastal states as well as UTs, namely Gujarat, Daman and Diu, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So the cleaning drives will be undertaken involving school or college students of eco clubs. So already we have covered regarding eco clubs in our previous session. And also Environment Education Division of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and SECOM, that is Society of Integrated Coastal Management, which is under the aegis of Ministry, it will be responsible for the overall coordination for drive in 50 beaches. Next important point is two organizations, that is SECOM and NCSCM, that is Society of Integrated Coastal Management and National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management. They have been formed under the aegis of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change as part of the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Project, which is supported by World Bank. So we have already covered regarding ICZM project, we have already covered regarding NCSCM, we have already covered regarding SECOM. So next important topic is National Policy on Software Products. So just know that this policy, it aims to develop India as the global software products hub, which is driven by innovation, improved commercialization, sustainable intellectual property, promoting technology startups and specialized skill sets, and to align with other government initiatives such as Startup India, Make in India and Digital India, Skill India, etc. So as to create Indian software products industry of around USD 70 to 80 billion with direct and indirect employment of around 3.5 million by 2025. So you have to remember, it aims to create a 3.5 million employment generation by 2025 as well as 70 to 80 billion US dollars with reference to software products industry. So again, there are many features under this National Policy on Software Products. You just have to remember that it provides for an outlay of rupees 1,500 crores over the period of next 7 years. And this 1,500 crore is divided into Software Product Development Fund and Research and Innovation Fund. The policy also proposes to create a 5,000 crore fund with industry participation to promote emerging technology such as Internet of Things, Artificial Intelligence, Blockchain, Big Data and Robotics. And also it aims to create a sustainable Indian software product industry which is driven by intellectual property and which can lead to a tenfold increase in Indian share of global software product market by 2025, and it wants to nurture 10,000 technology startups in software product industry and to create employment of around 3.5 million by 2025. So there are other features under this particular National Policy on Software Products, so go through it, do read and revise. So next important topic is contempt of court. So first you have to know about contempt of court. So contempt of court is an act of disrespect or disobedience towards a judge or court's officers or interference with its orderly process. So Contempt of Courts Act of 1971, it categorizes contempt of courts as civil contempt and criminal contempt. So under civil contempt, it is willful disobedience to any judgment, decree, direction or order or writ or any other processes of a court, or willful breach of an undertaking which is given to the court. And criminal contempt, it usually includes anything that scandalizes or tends to scandalize the judiciary or try to lower the court's authority. So under punishments, usually Supreme Court and High Courts, they have the power to punish for contempt of the court either with simple imprisonment for a term of up to like 6 months or with fine up to 2000 rupees or with both. And next you have to know whether Supreme Court should take Attorney General's consent to initiate contempt of the court. So there is no requirement for the Supreme Court to take Attorney General's consent in initiating a criminal contempt proceeding on its own, as it exercises inherent power under the Constitution in issuing the show cause notice. So in Vijay Karle case, the court said the source of power of the Supreme Court for proceeding for an action of contempt is under Article 129. And this power is not limited in any manner by the Contempts of the Courts Act 1971. And you guys have to also remember, as far as the suo motu petitions are concerned, there is no requirement for taking consent of anybody, including the learned Attorney General, because the court is exercising its inherent powers to issue notice for contempt. So let's see what are the constitutional backings for contempt power for judiciary. So Article 129, which grants Supreme Court the power to punish for contempt of itself. So Article 142 subclause 2, it enables the Supreme Court to investigate and punish any person for its contempt. And Article 215, it grants every High Court the power to punish for contempt of itself. So next important topic is National Security Act. So it is a preventive detention law. It was introduced by Indira Gandhi in 1980. So it is a stringent law that allows preventive detention for months if authorities are satisfied that a person is a threat to national security or law and order. Okay. So this Act, National Security Act, it empowers the center or state government to detain a person to prevent him from acting in any manner prejudicial to the national security. So next you have to remember the other grounds on which NSA empowers the center and state government to detain a person is to prevent him or her from disrupting public order or for maintenance of supply and services essential to the community. And do remember, this National Security Act, it also empowers the government to detain foreigners and to regulate his or her presence or to expel him or her from India. And next important point what you have to remember is maximum period of detention is 12 months. And next you have to know the order can also be made by the district magistrate or commissioner of police under their respective jurisdiction, but the detention should be reported to the state government along with the grounds on which the order has been made. So next important point what you have to remember is when a person is detained under the National Security Act, he or she can be held for 10 days without being told the charges against him or her. However, we know that Article 22 subclause 1 of the Indian Constitution, which says an arrested person cannot be denied the right to consult and right to be defended by a legal practitioner of his or her choice. And also according to Section 50 of the Criminal Procedure Code, any person arrested has to be informed of the grounds of arrest and also has the right to bail. However, under this National Security Act, none of these rights are available to the person detained. So the government holds the right to conceal information which it considered to be against public interest to disclosure. So the detained person is not entitled to any legal aid. Do remember. And also know that National Crime Records Bureau, which collects crime data in India, it also does not include cases under the National Security Act as no FIRs are registered. And you should know the government use National Security Act as an extrajudicial power. Next important topic is Article 22 of Fundamental Rights, that is preventive detention. So preventive detention is action taken beforehand to prevent possible commitment of crime. So preventive detention thus is action taken on grounds of suspicion that some wrong actions may be done by the person concerned. So preventive detention can however be made only on 4 grounds you have to remember. One is security of state, maintenance of public order, maintenance of supply and essential services, and defense, foreign affairs, or security of India. So this defense has to come here. So a detainee under preventive detention, he can have no right of personal liberty guaranteed by Article 21 and also has no right under Article 19. And next you should be knowing about Article 22 and its subclauses. So Article 22 of the Constitution provides that a person cannot be arrested and detained without being informed about the grounds of such arrest. This means that before a person is arrested, he must be informed that he is being arrested and reason why he is being arrested. Next, a person who is arrested cannot be denied to be defended by a legal practitioner of his choice. So this means that the arrested person has right to hire a legal practitioner to defend himself or herself. And next, every person who has been arrested would be produced before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours. So the custody of the detained person cannot be beyond the said period by the authority of the magistrate. So by this time you should have revised what are the safeguards which are provided under the Constitution and what protections are available against arrest and detention in certain cases. So next important topic is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban Program. So this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban Program, it was launched by Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. And this program envisions provision of housing for all by 2022. So you have to remember, when the nation completes 75 years of the independence, that is by 2022, it wants to provide housing for all. So beneficiaries include economically weaker section, low income groups and also middle income groups. Next you have to remember Housing for All mission under this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So this Housing for All mission for urban area is being implemented during 2015 to 2022, and this mission will provide central assistance to implementing agencies through states and UTs for providing houses to all eligible families and beneficiaries by 2022. So this Housing for All mission will be implemented as a centrally sponsored scheme, except for the component of credit linked subsidy, which will be implemented as a central sector scheme. So the Housing for All mission, it also seeks to address the housing requirement of urban poor, including slum dwellers. And another important component under this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is credit linked subsidy scheme. So as I said, this credit linked subsidy scheme, it is implemented as a central sector scheme, and it is a component of this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, under which not only economically weaker sections but also middle income groups can avail home loan at reduced EMI options. So the aim of this credit linked subsidy scheme is to construct more than 2 crore houses across the length and breadth of the nation. So the houses under this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana will be allotted to preferably the female member of the family. So it covers the entire urban area consisting of 4041 statutory towns with initial focus on 500 class 1 cities. So next important topic is Global Housing Technology Challenge. So the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, it has launched this Global Housing Technology Challenge to make the construction cost effective as well as innovative. So the goal of this GHTC, that is Global Housing Technology Challenge, is to fast track the construction of affordable housing and meet the target of construction of 1.2 crore houses by 2022 under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban mission is to provide all-weather Pakka houses to the eligible beneficiaries. So now how it is done? It is done through this Global Housing Technological Challenge. Through this Global Housing Technology Challenge, India tends to get best globally viable innovative construction technologies through a challenge process. So it seeks to demonstrate and deliver ready to live in houses in a shorter time with lower cost and quality construction in a sustainable manner. So next important point is Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network. So this Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network is an indigenously developed technology system in India, and it digitizes vaccine stocks and also monitors the temperature of the cold chain through a smartphone app. So this electronic vaccine intelligence network, it aims to support the government of India's universal immunization program by providing real-time information on vaccine stocks and flows. Next, you have to remember that technological innovation is implemented by the United Nations Development Program. And this electronic vaccine intelligence network, it aims to strengthen the evidence base for improved policy making in vaccine delivery, procurement and planning for new antigens in India. And this even, it also empowers the cold chain handlers by building technical capacities and providing them a robust decision making tool for cold chain management. Next important topic is Accelerate Vigyan. So Science and Engineering Research Board, which is a statutory body under the Department of Science and Technology, has inaugurated an inter-ministerial initiative called Accelerate Vigyan scheme. So the major aim of this initiative is to provide big push to high-end scientific research and prepare scientific manpower which can venture into research careers and knowledge-based economy. So this Accelerate Vigyan, it aims to expand the research base in the country with three broad goals. First one is consolidation or aggregation of all scientific training programs. Second one is initiating high-end orientation workshops, and third is creating opportunities for research internships. And next, you should know some of the components of this Accelerate Vigyan. So we have Abhyas, we have Karyashala, we have Ritika, we have Sammohan. Under Sammohan, we have again two components, that is Sayonjika and Sangoshti. So if you have read about Accelerate Vigyan, you might be knowing Abhyas, which is a program of this Accelerate Vigyan scheme, is an attempt to boost research and development in country by enabling and grooming potential PG and PhD level students by developing dedicated research skills in selected areas or disciplines or fields through its two important component. One is Karyashala and second is Vritika. So Karyashala, it deals with high-end workshops and Vritika deals with research internship. So next important new component under this Accelerate Vigyan is Sammohan. So under this Sammohan, we have Sayonjika and Sangoshti. And Sayonjika is an open-ended program to catalog the capacity building activities in science and technology supported by all government funding agencies in the country. And currently we don't have much details about Sangoshti. So this Sammohan is a new component which is added under Accelerate Vigyan. So next important topic is air unit quality monitoring. Here just know that the scientists in India, they have developed this indigenous photonic system that is called ARM, air unit quality monitoring. So this ARM, that is deals with air unit quality monitoring, it provides real-time remote monitoring of air quality parameters. And next important point what you have to know is air unit quality monitoring, that is ARM, is developed with the support from Department of Science and Technology's Clean Air Research Initiative. And do remember this Clean Air Research Initiative, it was launched in 2009 by the Department of Science and Technology with the major aim to develop national research competence to drive down the cost of clean energy. And next you have to remember this ARM, that is Air Unit Quality Monitoring. It is an innovative application of the principle of laser backscattering, statistical mechanicals, optoelectronics, artificial intelligence, machine or deep learning, and the Internet of Things. And this ARM was successfully evaluated during laboratory trials with gold standards and operated by Karnataka State Pollution Control Board under the aegis of Central Pollution Control Board of India. Next important topic is Clean Air Initiative. So we already have dealt with Breath Life International and CCAC. So now let's know about Clean Air Initiative. So in 2019, UN, WHO, UNEP and CCAC, they announced this Clean Air Initiative. So this Clean Air Initiative, it calls on national and subnational governments to commit to achieving air quality that is safe for citizens and to align climate change and air pollution policies by 2030. And next you have to remember governments at all levels, they can join the clean air initiative by committing to specific actions. So they include implementing air quality and climate change policies that will achieve the WHO ambient air quality guideline values. And governments have to implement e-mobility and sustainable mobility policies and actions, especially on road transport emissions. And the policy should include assessing the number of lives that are saved, the health gains in children and other vulnerable groups, tracking progress, sharing experiences and best practices through an international network supported by Breath Life Action Platform. And next you have to remember Clean Air Initiative. It has been developed as part of the social and political drivers action area of 2019 Climate Action Summit, which was led by World Health Organization together with the governments of Peru and Spain, UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs and International Labour Organization. Next important topic is Eco Network. So this Eco Network is a national program to provide a template for cross-disciplinary leadership in India, and the major focus of this Eco Network is to increase research, knowledge and awareness of Indian ecology and the environment. So the main thing what you have to remember about Eco Network for prelims is it is a social innovation partnership between multidisciplinary organizations, and especially it is steered by principal scientific advisor to the government. So you have to remember government, industry and academia, that is government, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and industry and academia like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Hindustan Unilever Limited, A3, India Climate Collaborative, etc. They are founding partners of this particular Eco Network. So the major aim of the Eco Network is increasing research, knowledge and awareness of Indian ecology and the environment. So do remember it is for Indian ecology and environment. Therefore, the Eco Network, it intends to create an international distributed institute comprising individuals housed within industry, government, private and academic sectors, combining their expertise and resource collectivity to tackle large scale problems dealing with ecology and environment. So next important topic, you have to know some important places which are in news. So this dangerous ground, as you can see here, the circle shaded part, which includes reefs like Johnson South Reef and Corteran Reef, Mischief Reef, Gaven Reef and Fiery Cross Reef. So you have to remember that this dangerous ground is a large area in the southeast part of the South China Sea, and this dangerous ground, it is characterized by many sunken reefs, low islands and atolls. So we have already covered about South China Sea, especially while dealing with 9-dash line. So do remember Paracel Islands, do remember Spratly Islands, which are in news. So next important regions which are in news is Tuna One Field and Bohai Sea, Yellow Sea, East China Sea. So Tuna One Field, it is in the Black Sea. Already we have covered regarding Black Sea. During that time I told, remember Turkey burger in order to know the surrounding countries of the Black Sea. So this Tuna One Field was in news as Turkey discovered the biggest ever natural gas reserve in this particular Black Sea. So this Black Sea's Tuna One zone, it lies at least 100 nautical miles north of the Turkish coast in the western Black Sea. So this zone is close to an area where maritime borders of Bulgaria and Romania meet. And this Tuna One Field, it is located near to the Romanian gas reserve, that is Neptune Block, the largest gas find in the Black Sea in decades. And right now, Turkey has discovered the biggest ever natural gas reserves in Black Sea in this Tuna One zone. Next, do revise about Yellow Sea, Sea of Japan, Bohai Sea and East China Sea. And next important places in news is Mount Sinabung and Ring of Fire. So Mount Sinabung was in news because of an active volcano in North Sumatra, Indonesia. So you can see in Sumatra Island in Indonesia, so it is located in the northern part. So this Mount Sinabung is next to the Lake Toba. So simple questions can come, where is Mount Sinabung or Lake Toba? So we know that Indonesia is planning to shift its capital from Jakarta to the Kalimantan, which is on the Borneo island. And you should be knowing Indonesia is home to many active volcanoes due to its position on the Ring of Fire or the Circum-Pacific Belt, which is an area along the Pacific Ocean which is characterized by active volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. So the Ring of Fire is home to about 75% of the world's volcanoes and about 90% of its earthquake, and the Ring of Fire is almost 40,000 km long. So these are the 20 important topics in this session. So we'll deal with more important topics in coming session, and we'll try to complete the sessions as soon as possible. Thank you.